So, Dustin, let's dive into this. Let's tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. What do you invest in? Where did you get started? And where do you invest?
Yeah, so I invest in residential, so 4 units and below. In fact, that's my bread and butter. Now I have expanded out into hotels and apartment complexes and things like that. But my bread and butter, like literally what I do in my sleep, just like as I've done it so much since 2006 when I first got started investing, is residential, 4 units and below, buy and hold properties. I love those. And so when I was 37 years old, I was blessed to be able to quit my job because I had enough income from my rental properties that made me money so that I didn't have to work. And so,
Mhm.
but let me quickly go back to the beginning. So I've always been entrepreneurial in my life, starting businesses and that sort of thing. But I have been taught, just like we're all taught the same exact quote unquote plan that we're told by our teachers and our, people around us, our parents even. They say, go to school, get good grades. Then you take those good grades and then you go to college or university and you get more good grades, but you get in thousands and thousands of dollars into debt. Then you take that piece of paper that they give you, a degree, and then you go and shop around to different companies and hopefully get a career, quote unquote career there, work 40, 50 years of your life, and eventually retire when you're 65, 70 years old and live on what you managed to save up that entire time working that just over broke job. Well, I'm following the exact same path. In fact, so much so that I got a job, the most stable, secure job I could ever think of. I was working in California at a local county government doing technology. So California is definitely not going away. Government will probably never go away. And technology, that's definitely not going away. So check, I was doing that, going and working 9 to 5. It was a good job and all. And at the same time, started creating businesses. So I had a newspaper route. That's where most people don't know what newspapers are anymore, but I'd ride on my bike with newspapers and throw them at 5 a.m., banging them on garage doors, waking people up. I had a graphic and website design company. I had a skateboard manufacturing business. I even had a pizzeria and a convenience store, all started from the ground up, but at the same time, following that same path. But here's really what shoved me to become a real estate investor. So I bought, at the time, doing all these other businesses, still working that 9 to 5 job, I bought one rental property because I thought, hey, it might be good to buy real estate. And I did. And I remember the check that I got. It was my income from my properties, passive income. You deduct your income from your rent minus your expenses. I literally got made the check as plain as I could see it in my mind, $317. I was like, wow, that was the easiest $317 I've ever done because I have other people doing the work for me. I need to be an investor. I need to stop everything and be an investor. But just like what happens, Eric, life gets in the way. So I'm working this 9 to 5 job, and my wife and I started having child after child after child. All these other businesses, they were doing okay, but they wasn't definitely enough, not enough for me to quit my job. And then my wife and I had our fourth child. And as soon as we had our fourth child, I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers, and bonds with the
Hmm.
baby, Eric, all that good
Yeah.
stuff. And in after about 2 weeks of going on paternity leave, I came back to work. And in that same week that I get back to work, I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog, and she says, "Dustin, would you please come to the office?" And I said, "Sure." And I hung with the phone. And this was Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon. I thought, why in the world are they calling me to the office? This isn't normal. And I've seen plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 is not a good sign. And so I started thinking, my goodness. Well, pausing that, I actually remember 2 months prior to that, there were some rumors or some rumbling going on that there could potentially be layoffs in the county where I was working. I thought, no way, I've got 12, 13 years seniority here. I got lots of seniority. My bosses think I do a great job. So I shook it off. There's no way. So I get up and I walk down the hallway to my boss's office. And honestly, Eric, this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short. But every single step that I took, it felt like the hallway got longer and longer and longer. And it felt like my feet became lead bricks because it was really just weighing on me, dawning on me that I could potentially lose my job. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door is closed and I see his secretary there. Super sweet, nice old lady. And she says, "Dustin, would you please have a seat?" And she's kind of sheepishly grinning at me, trying to console me with her eyes because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. Well, I go and I take my seat and I sit there and I think about my life. If I get laid off right now, that whole plan that I was told by other people, I started thinking, did I just waste my life doing this if it gets taken away from me? And then I realized, oh my goodness, if I don't have a job to make money to provide for my family, does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a man trying to provide for his family? Well, as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy, my forehead gets all sweaty because the nerves and everything is just crushing down me because I could potentially lose my job. Well, the door to my boss's office opens up. Out walks a lady, a coworker of mine, with a piece of paper in her hands. She is noticeably distraught, noticeably upset. Now, she's not necessarily crying, but you could tell her world's just been devastated. She passes by me, and my boss says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? So I get up and I go into the office and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. And the reason why I tell the story, because I want you to learn from what happened to me. So I take that layoff notice and I go to my desk and I sit down and I realize two things sitting there at my desk. Number one, I need to get another job. Like I need to be able to provide for my family. So praise the Lord, I was blessed to find another job in the same county. A different department was not having the problems that this department was. So check, I was blessed to quickly get a job right then and there. But the second thing that I realized sitting in that chair, just getting laid off, was I need to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I realized whenever anybody would tell me or ask me the question, Dustin, what do you do? You know, we all get that question. What do you do? Well, I would always reply with my job. And I would say, oh, I work for the county doing technology for the county. And I'm basically, and this is what we do, we're projecting the value that we put on ourselves as coming from our job. I realized, no, my value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my God, from myself, and from my family. So right then and there, I realized, and remember, I knew I wanted to be an investor, but life got in the way. I said, no longer will I ever let life get in the way. I am now an investor. Now, it may so happen that 100% of my money comes from my job. That's now my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor. So fast forward the story, started working this new job, really blessed to have that, and then started buying property after property after property, each one making me a minimum of $250 or more in passive income. Eventually, I was blessed. I had 30 plus properties, and I realized, my goodness, even though I'm making $75,000 a year at this job, I'm losing money. So the last part of the story, I went to my new boss, great boss and all. I went to new boss and I said, hey, boss, I'm quitting. Here's your 2 weeks notice, you know, jokingly. And we laughed. And he said, well, Dustin, what are you going to do? I said, I don't have to do anything. In fact, I own real estate that works for me when I sleep, when I'm awake, when I go play with my kids. So last part of the story, I went and walked away from my job for the very, very last time. I have taken this walk 1,000 times. So I've worked in downtown, a 1.5 mile walk, and I've done it 1,000 times. But this last time, walk away from my job, I knew I would never, ever need a job again. So I was walking on clouds as opposed to walking down that short hallway with lead bricks on my feet. I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I was now being paid for the value that I bring. And so everybody